Hi guys, it's Christiane with the Science Jam. Hope you guys are doing well today and are able to see me. I'm actually in my garage because of a smoke detector issue inside that was beeping and I couldn't get it to fix before I recorded this. So just wanted to talk a little bit about Egyptian mummification today. So I don't know if you guys have ever been able to visit a science museum and see one of an Egyptian mummy, but they're pretty cool. And they could be as old as like 4,000 years old. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why and how the Egyptians mummified. So Egyptians believed in mummification because they believed that you needed your body to be preserved in the afterlife. So it's a preservation method. So it's very scientific. So what did they do? Step one, they removed the brain. So they would take a hook like this. You can see my hook. And they would slide it up the nose of the mummy. Don't do this. Don't slide it up your nose. But they would slide it up the nose and they would stir up the brain. Because think about pulling out wet chunks with a hook. It wouldn't work very well. So actually they would liquefy the brain with a hook like this. And then they would tip the head over and pour it out the nose. But it's because the Egyptians, all they thought was that your brain made snot. So it was just useless. They didn't really think that we thought with our brains. They thought that we thought with our hearts. So the heart was the most important thing. So after they removed the brain, someone called the slitter would take a piece of obsidian. And obsidian looks like this. It is a black volcanic rock. It can be carved and broken to be very sharp. And so they would take a piece of obsidian and they would slice down the left side of the body, a fairly small slit, and then the slitter would run away because that was a desecration of the body, and they would actually throw rocks at him. It was not a job you would want to have. And they would remove 4 key organs. So that's not the heart. Any ideas what they were? They were the lungs, the liver, the intestines, and I think the kidneys. I should have reminded myself of this. It's been a while since I've taught this. It's on the Nat Geo link, but they put them into the canopic jars. And the canopic jars were each guarded by a son of Horus. So they were each kept, and there's gods like Hapi was one of them. I don't remember which one he guarded, but they guarded your organs, and so that was where those organs were preserved. But all about mummification is removing the water so that your body didn't rot. So after that, they left the heart in. They would pack the body with natron, and so natron is a naturally occurring salt that occurs on the banks of the Nile River. And so it actually looks kind of like this. What does this look like? This is actually natron, is chemically a lot like baking soda and salt mixed together. So it's what we're going to use to mummify our potato in just a minute. And so they would pack the body inside and outside with natron and leave it for anywhere from 30 days to 70 days. Depending on what was going on. And so they would, oh yes, the stomach. That's the one I couldn't think of at the moment. The stomach. And so they would remove those organs, pack the body with natron, and then let it dry out. So you guys, what do you think the body looked like after those 40 days? It kind of looks like beef jerky. And so I think now is a great time that let's start our experiment with the potato. So hopefully you have a potato and mom or dad are around or have already cut your potato for you. Oh, and let me show you. I actually pulled up a picture of those canopic jars. Let me show you what a picture of them would look like. So you see how they each have one of the gods guarding them? So each organ would go into those. So I'm going to set my phone to the side. I have one more picture to show later. But what we want to do is we want to have our potato we want to have a slice. It's about 1 inch thick. So mine might be a little too thick on this side, so I'm going to trim it. So, okay. So you see my potato, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick. You would like it to be as straight as possible, but it's not critical for it to be straight. So hopefully mom or dad can help you with this portion of getting a thick slice of potato. And then you want to take a cookie cutter. As I said in the instructions, mine is a little gingerbread man, but you could use a star, a heart, a circle, any cookie cutter that you want. And we're going to cut out a little person. Mine's a gingerbread man, so I have a little mummified person. But what you're going to do is you line it up with your potato and push it down, or slice it through. And then we're going to peel off the extra hearts. If your potato's a little too thick, you might have to push through a little bit more. But here we go. Here is my potato man. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our container and we're going to pack our potato, our little mummy, in natron. So what I want you to do is to take your container. I have just this little tray right here, and I'm going to put a bit of salt, about half of whatever you have available is what you want to put in there. So you put some salt, put some baking soda, and then you're going to want to just mix this with your hand. It's just to mix them together. And then you're going to set your little person in there. So there's mine right there. You can see he's in there. And now we're going to we're just going to bury him in more salt and baking soda. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of baking soda, maybe a little bit more salt, a little bit more baking soda, and then if you have any chunks, mix them up and make sure. I'm going to cover my guy, some of mine that went to the sides. So you just want to make sure that you have nice and coverage. I'm going to put a little more baking soda on mine because his feet were sticking out. So you can see he's nice and covered there. And what you're going to do is you're going to just set this on a nice kitchen counter or shelf for about a day. And then what you want to do is take the same amount of baking soda and salt and switch them out. So I have a nice tray here that I use to dry out my baking soda. This is my one set of baking soda, and then this is my other one. And I'm going to show you, if you do this switch out every day with a set of baking soda and salt and let the one that's not having your mummy buried in it dry out, you can get a little mummified potato. So you saw how thick the one is that I sliced. Look at how little this guy is. One, I have my cookie cutter that you can see, compare his size to the cookie cutter. So one, he got smaller, he got thinner, and he's much hard. He kind of feels like leather. And that's exactly what the mummification process was like, is that it removes the moisture and it makes it kind of like beef jerky. So that is how you're going to make your potato mummified, is you need to switch out the baking soda and salt about every day or two. And in a week, you too can have a little mummified potato man. In the experiment link that I'm going to post, you could also do an experiment where you don't put a potato slice, maybe one of your scraps that you have here. Don't put that in the baking soda and salt and see what happens to it. It might get kind of slimy and it might rot. But you can compare in a couple days what they look like, and you can see how we call it a desiccant, the desiccant of the baking soda and salt, which is like our natron, how it helps preserve our potato. So what would the Egyptians do? I'm going to set mine aside so that way in another week I might have another potato mummy. So after they would remove this body, the body from the natron, what would they do with it? Well, they would take spices like cinnamon and cloves and pepper. One of my fun facts is that they would actually take peppercorns and put them up the mummy's nose so that the mummy would sneeze itself awake into the afterlife. But they would also take different amulets and use linen and wrap the mummy. So I'm not going to be able to, I can try to wrap my mummy with my little linen, but here's an example of a linen strip. And what they would do is they would start on the hand and they would wrap finger by finger and then up the arm and all the way. The head would be the last part that they wrapped. But when they would get to the heart, they would place this, or an amulet like this. This is called the heart scarab, and it would be placed over the heart. And the important thing about this is that it has a prayer on the back that says, please do not tell against me, heart. And the reason is that the Egyptians believed in a ceremony called weighing of the heart. And so in the weighing of the heart ceremony, the heart was weighed against a feather. And that feather, if the heart was light, then the person had done good. If the heart was heavy, then the person had done bad. So the little prayer on the heart, or on the scarab, is like, heart, please tell a lie if you need to, so that way I can get into the afterlife. And what that looked like is right here. You can see, I'm going to try to hold this closer to the camera. Right about here is the god who is operating the scale. And so there's the heart and the feather. And it was to go to the afterlife, or if your heart was too heavy, it got eaten by the monster who was part crocodile and lion. And so you did not want your heart to be heavy. So that was the key of the heart scarab. But they would have all different kinds of amulets all over the body that would be included in the linen wrapping. And so those were kind of like little prayers and little charms to help make it to the afterlife. So just posted a couple links that you can do with some more steps of mummification. You can also mummify an orange, where you kind of like what I did with the hook. You pull out all the liquid parts of the orange and you stuff it with the cloves and the cinnamon and wrap it so you have a mummy orange. You can also compare, today we only use baking soda and table salt, but there's other desiccants, because this is the most chemically like what natron was for the Egyptians, but there's multiple other desiccants that you could use, and you could see which one mummifies the best. That's an experiment that'll be posted regarding apples. So where you chop up some chunks of apples and try out which one dries it up the best. So I hope you enjoyed the Science Jam today. If you have any questions about Egyptian mummification, or I would love to see the pictures of y'all's mummies later, I'll post a picture of my little mummy. I call him Marty the Mummy in my in the comments below. Then I would love to see y'all's mummies, and I look forward to seeing you again next week on the Science Jam. Thanks!